On today's episode, we're going to be giving our spoiler-free review of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice because this is the Film Optics Podcast.
I'm vengeance.
All it is, Miles. A leap of faith.
This is the way. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Tells me you're most relentless.
Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optics Podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and today I'm joined, as always, by my partner in film, Devin. And today we're going to be sharing our thoughts, our opinions on Tim Burton's Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. Don't say his name 3 times or he might appear. But before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to our show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Film Optics. That is Optics with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptics@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. And you can also send us a text message by searching for Send Us a Text in the episode notes down below. It should be the very first option as soon as you're getting down to those episode notes, listening on your favorite podcast platform of choice. Devin, the NFL is back. We're back, baby! We're back, baby!
We finally made it. We get to watch the Ravens lose tonight.
Yes, I am Team Kansas Swifties tonight for sure. Absolutely. I'm in 3 drafts. One is a free draft. The other 2 are paid. And then we got like a $20 draft and a $50. I'm very confident in my $50 draft team. I got some good players. So have you signed up for any leagues yourself?
Yeah, I'm in probably a couple too many. Just
Like
gets out of
5?
hand sometimes. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. It's definitely the most I've ever done.
So I did have a few other people reach out to me and ask me if I wanted to join their league. And at the time, I was already juggling 3. I was like, I don't know if I can do this like 2 more times. And like, I told them like next year for sure. But this year I told them like, hey, I'm already in 3. That's like the most that I can handle. So we will see what happens.
Definitely keeps you occupied.
It definitely does. Definitely does. I don't know. I'm like, do I want that responsibility every week? It's like, it's different if it's like 1, maybe 3, because it's like, I feel like that's more manageable. Once you hit like 5, it's like, and I don't know. I guess it also depends on if it's like a buy-in league. If it's not a buy-in league, yeah, sure, I probably would have done it, but I probably should have asked that question first.
Yeah.
They were probably free leagues, but it is what it is, you know. Next year for sure. I told them both. I'm like, I will join 1,000%. But what's your grade looking like on your favorite team? Like, how would you grade that team?
I haven't figured out what the favorite is yet. They gotta perform for me.
That is very true. That's very, very true. Yeah, so I'm very interested to see where this football season leads us. But today, as I mentioned, we're going to be giving our spoiler-free review of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. This was directed by Tim Burton. So without further delay, we'll be right back after this introduction to Beetlejuice Beetlejuice.
Daylight come and we want to go. Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana. Daylight come and we want to go. Day, me say 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 day. Daylight come and we want to go.
The juice is loose.
fans, we are back with our Beetlejuice spoiler-free review. This film, as I mentioned before, is directed by Tim Burton, and writers include Alfred Gough, I should say, Miles Miller, and Seth Graham Smith. I like that last name. It's hyphenated, Graham Smith. And stars Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, and of course Jenna Ortega, just to name a few. And the synopsis is as follows. After a family tragedy, 3 generations of the Deetz family return home to Winter River, still haunted by Beetlejuice. Lydia's life is turned upside down when her teenage daughter Astrid accidentally opens the portal to the afterlife. So, Devin, I got to ask, are you a Beetlejuice fan? Were you a fan of the original movie? What is your history with the original film?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like a super fan or anything, but definitely enjoyed the first one. I only probably watched it a couple times, but just one of those classics. Michael Keaton always gets the job done.
Were you able to watch or rewatch the first one before seeing the second?
Yeah, I rewatched it the day before.
Oh, wow. Look at you. I did not do my due diligence this time. I do apologize. I was very busy. I was actually busy watching Lord of the Rings, the first 3 episodes. They're very good, of season 2. So I did not get a chance to rewatch the first.
It's just so wild how young Alec Baldwin is in that.
I know.
Definitely one of his first roles.
Seriously, man. It's so crazy to actually think about what the original one came out in the 80s, I believe.
88.
88. That's what I thought. Okay. So yeah, it's crazy to actually think, you go back and watch these old movies. It's like, wow, that's a very young Alec Baldwin, or that's a very young Winona Ryder. So, and I believe Beetlejuice was one of Winona Ryder's first big breaks as well. So it is pretty cool to see the cast returning, with some new and familiar faces as well. But yeah, I can't say I was ever a big Beetlejuice fan. I remember watching it when I was a kid. I think I've seen it maybe once, but I can't say it was my favorite movie. I didn't hate it though. It was just one of those movies that I watched. It's oh yeah, it came out in the 80s. It's nothing you really think about too much, but it is definitely geared towards kids for sure. You're literally dipping into the mind of Tim Burton there. So yeah, that's pretty much my
back
history.
when there was only PG rating, basically. Didn't even have PG-13.
Yeah, you can get away with a lot more PG rating back then for sure. But yeah, man, Tim Burton, he's definitely has made a great name for himself for sure. And it's great to see him back for another one of his projects. So we're going to get into our spoiler-free thoughts here. I'm going to pass it over to Devin so he can give his spoiler-free thoughts on Beetlejuice, because you just saw this last night, I believe.
Oh yeah, it was a packed house. It was one of those fan events, early screenings, and there was not an open seat, and there were a bunch of people dressed up as Beetlejuice, and everyone had shirts on. It was pretty cool.
Heck yeah, man. It is fall. The fall season is here. Spooky season has arrived.
It's officially here. The weather's starting to cool down a bit finally. We're getting into that mood.
For sure. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Beetlejuice?
Yeah, going into this one, like I mentioned, I watched the original the day before just to kind of get in the right headspace as Mr. Beetlejuice. And I think what this one does well is kind of, it just keeps the similar vibes of Beetlejuice, where he's not taking over every scene of the whole movie. You'd expect the title character to be a huge part of the movie, but they use him very wisely in this and the original, where it's not just every scene has Beetlejuice in it.
Right.
In the original, he wasn't even on screen for the first 40 minutes. It took that long for him to even pop up in the first one. So it's kind of cool that they didn't rely too much on Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice in this one, and they used him sparingly to kind of have his entertainment value hyped up even more, because he's just, every time he's on screen, it just feels like everything's amped up, everything's wilder and crazier, and I just love that. Just seeing him pop up from here and there, and I just love the world that Tim Burton creates. He just has such a cool mind for film, where he takes you into his world, is what it feels like. and just everything, how he views everything and his visuals. Like all the sets look great. They kept everything practical for the most part. Like they didn't go any CG routes that I could tell. And there's just a lot of cool visuals throughout. Similar to Alien Romulus, where it just feels like every set and every visual is just so well done. And they didn't take any cheap routes, and they did it the way that they intended. I will say, as far as the story goes, I think it takes a little while to find its footing, because it just starts off like such a breakneck pace. Like everything is so zany and wacky, and just kind of the classic Tim Burton. But it takes a little bit to get into the actual meat of the story and understand where they're going with it. I think once they find their footing is where the movie really takes off and starts to really work out. And I think I love the addition of Jenna Ortega. Obviously, her and Tim Burton are good friends now after their work on Wednesday. It actually does feel like kind of an extended episode of Wednesday when you're watching it, just because that's the last thing on our mind from those two. And it just feels like they get each other really well, and they know exactly what each other are looking for as far as putting something on screen. And I think she did a great job, as always. Of course, Michael Keaton is great. Catherine O'Hara is back as Delia Deetz, and we get Winona Ryder back as Lydia Deetz. I think they did a good job of that mother-daughter dynamic.
Okay, yeah. So I actually was not sure, and I meant to, because like I said, it's been a while since I've seen the first movie. I didn't know if Catherine O'Hara was in the original or not. But yeah, thanks for confirming. Because I never picked it up.
Yeah, those are the three returning ones: Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, and Catherine O'Hara.
Gotcha.
I actually was curious as to why the couple from the first one, Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, and why the dad from the first one didn't show up. But I did some searching because I thought the dad might not be around anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's actually a little more sinister than that.
Oh God. Lay it on.
Yeah, I looked up the actor. He was in a lot of stuff, like in the 80s and 90s. He was in like Ferris Bueller's Day Off as like the principal.
Yeah.
He was in Howard the Duck. So I looked it up. In 2002, he was arrested and charged with he's a pedophile.
Gotcha.
Okay. Right to the chase. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's why he's not in this movie, I imagine. It kind of makes you wonder, maybe that's why they had his character's fate the way it was. Mm-hmm. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if that was intentional by Tim Burton or not, because his character definitely has an interesting fate in this one.
Yeah. I definitely agree there, for sure. But yeah, as when it comes to this movie, I went to go see it on Tuesday night. Surprisingly, it wasn't like a fan screening. It was just for critics. We could bring someone. I brought my friend Scott with me, and we had a good time. I always kind of write down my initial short thoughts in the letterbox, and I pretty much said that this is the perfect movie to kick off the spooky season. It's featuring an incredible cast, with of course Jenna Ortega being like the newly added character here, and she definitely stands out. But it's hilarious between the three generation of Deetz women. They have this witty chemistry, like resentful banter towards each other, and it's quite possibly, I didn't expect this movie to be so freaking funny. Like, the writing was sharp, the dialogue was so sharp, and the story itself was a little bit fast-paced. There are a lot of threads that happen, but like you said, it does take a second for the movie to find its footing, but I think it does stick the landing towards the end, because there are these side plots that kind of get squished along the way. I'm not sure if I did watch a part of their review, Jeremy Johns. And of course, before I go any further, we have Willem Dafoe in this movie as well. And my gosh, he was hilarious. And it was just one of those nice little things. And there's other surprises in there as well. But I thought that was amazing that he was like a part of this. And I remember him being like somewhat towards the marketing, because when we watched it, they did like a with like all the cast and crew, and he was like the main person talking. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that Willem Dafoe is in this movie. And, he just does a fantastic job. Jeremy Jones was talking about, if there's two characters in this movie that you could take out and it would not change the story. And one of them was Willem Dafoe and the other one was Monica Bellucci. And I was like, well, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, Willem Dafoe's character was he was kind of not like comic relief, but it was really fun just to see him kind of do his thing. I love how Willem Dafoe is so versatile and he's just taking on these crazy projects of his. And
I love Monica Bellucci's intro.
That
was a really cool setup.
Yeah, that was really cool. I do wish that we would have gotten a little bit more with her character because I feel like out of everyone in this movie, she was side pushed a bit. Like there is a through line, but it's like she shows up in spurts as well. But you see Beetlejuice more so than you see Monica Bellucci's character. But I just wish we would. Maybe it was just she was just there as the like I'm gonna get you kind of person. But it was still this movie was so funny, dude. Like I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did.
I was surprised at how funny Justin Theroux's character was.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Just like completely clueless.
He was. It's just one of those characters where you're like, it's like one of those people where it's like, oh man, you just feel so bad for him, but at the same time, like he's so innocent. So it's like, well, maybe ignorant is bliss kind of thing. But he seems so genuine and whatnot. And then
seems like it, but
yeah, he definitely seems like it. So it's like, things start to unfold, but there's also another love connection in this movie between Jenna Ortega and another character. And without giving anything away, Devin, I want to ask you, did you expect that reveal to happen? Not saying that I called it, but I was like, I wonder if this is going to happen.
Yeah, I picked up on it pretty quickly.
Yeah, a while. I was like, well, I'm like, maybe not. And then once I was like, okay, yeah, okay. But again, that was kind of like a plot line where it kind of served two purposes because you have, in the synopsis, it does say that Lydia Deetz does save her daughter from the underworld. And you find out how she gets there through this love connection that she has with this boy.
Yeah, it's a nice way to move the story along.
Yeah, it definitely is. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I really enjoyed it. It really put me in the spooky season mood. I've been trying to get back on the spooky season train. I finished playing The Quarry twice. I had to get that good ending, and now Beetlejuice, and I enjoyed it. I loved the banter back and forth. It was just a fun ride, and the fact that there's a lot of stop motion animation, a lot of practical effects, like you said, in this film, and I love every time we go into like Tim Burton's movies. It's like you said, it's just like a back door into his brain, and it's like just looking at his filmography of like what he's directed from like Beetlejuice, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Corpse Bride, Alice in Wonderland, even Batman Returns, Batman '89, and just Frankenweenie. I'm not sure if you remember that one, but it's like he has like these Sleepy Hollow, things of that nature. It's like, where do you come up with this stuff? Like, obviously a lot of this is based off other properties, but like something like Beetlejuice or like Edward Scissorhands, it's like, dude, what?
Yeah.
And
he's just one of the most unique minds out there.
Dude, it's like I'll watch anything with him. I remember he did that Planet of the Apes in 2001.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, that was a weird one, but he also did Dumbo, the live action, and I was like, that was interesting. But I feel like if he was able to do that animated, we would have gotten something really weird.
Yeah,
for sure. But let's move on to our trivia section here. I have a few amazing trivia tips. These are non-spoiler, of course. There are spoiler trivias out there, but we're the nice guys, and we want you guys to watch this movie and have a good time with it. So the first one I'm going to bring up here, Winona Ryder, Miss Winona Ryder. She only had one condition when she first met with the Stranger Things creators, Matt and Ross Duffer, for offering her the role. She said, on one condition, if Beetlejuice 2 ever got off the ground, they'd have to let her take a break from the series and film it. And they agreed, which is pretty awesome. And the second bit of trivia here is Michael Keaton said that him and Tim Burton were particularly interested in doing a film that wasn't too tech heavy. They wanted it to have the same practical effects as the original. And apparently Tim Burton also said that, he only wanted to do a second Beetlejuice if Michael Keaton will return to reprise his role. Of course he did. And Michael Keaton said back in March of 2014 that this is the only sequel that he was interested in doing, which is pretty awesome. And apparently the script, one of the writers, Seth Grahame-Smith, said that they've been working on the script since 2012, which is crazy to think of. And I think those are some pretty interesting trivia bits. Well, what do you think of that, Devin? What's on your mind?
Yeah, it's interesting that I'm surprised that, it's been, 36 years since the original, so
yeah,
it's kind of like that Top Gun effect where it takes 30 plus years to make the sequel, and you kind of hope it lives up to the original. I feel like Maverick is the only example where it's like definitively better than the original, so it's kind of hard to ever top that. But I think this one does a decent job of trying to not get overshadowed by the original too much.
Yeah, that is true. Also here with the trivia, I'm just reading through IMDb's trivia. Michael Keaton actually said the sequel was making the sequel was more fun than the original. And I think that's pretty awesome because
he definitely has not lost a step. He's Beetlejuice through and through.
He really is not. Like I said, there's a lot of vulgar humor in this movie, and this is PG-13, I believe, it's not rated R, no. But it definitely has to be PG-13. Definitely has to be. I'm not sure if there's anything in between a PG-13 and rated R. But also, here's another interesting tidbit: Beetlejuice 2 was a day and a half from finishing filming before the actor strike began. That's crazy to think about. That is wild to think about. A day and a half finished filming before the actor strike began. And also what you had mentioned about Jeffrey Jones, that is a trivia bit as well. His current status as a pedophile. So yeah, And the teaser confirmed that the character has died in the movie. So that kind of, takes care of that altogether. So, man, there's a lot of tidbits for trivia, but I'm not seeing anything else that's too interesting outside of this being Tim Burton's 20th feature film that he's directed. So I think that's pretty awesome. And also, I actually want to bring this one up. Tim Burton stated that Michael Keaton didn't rehearse before going on set. So, like you said, Devin, he did not.
It's in his bones.
It's in his bones, man. It's in his bones. My gosh. All right, let's get into our final thoughts and our ratings here for Beetlejuice. Devin, what are your final thoughts and ratings for this film?
Yeah, final thoughts. Like I mentioned before, it takes a little bit to find its footing. It's just too much going on in the first part of the movie, it feels like. Like we're just kind of catching up on all these new characters and everything that's going on. But once you settle in and figure out where the story's headed, I think it really starts to figure it out. And like you said, it sticks the landing towards the end. And I think most of the storylines come together nicely. There are some, like we mentioned, that don't get as much attention as others, but I think the important ones are the ones that stuck. And I think overall, as far as the movie goes, I was definitely entertained. Like you said, it definitely has its funny moments. It's got some great visuals throughout, like you'd expect from Tim Burton. Some great sets, some great practical effects, like all the crazy monsters and dead people you see in in the afterlife. Just
How
just
people
great.
die.
Yeah, you can kind of tell right away with some of them. And it's just great to see these actors come back to the roles that they love. As far as the score goes, I'd probably give it like a 75 overall, like super solid. Like I said, there definitely is an issue where there's a bit too much going on at times, especially towards the beginning. I do think they figure it out eventually.
Yeah, I actually agree with that score because I gave it a 3.5 stars on Letterboxd, so that would, in my mind, at least equal up to a 75 out of 100. And it, like you said, it's just one of those movies where it is a sequel that works. To say that it's better than the original, I feel like that's up for debate. Again, I did not watch the first Beetlejuice, but I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch it for sure, just to try to fit it into the spooky season. But I think this was a great film to release one day after Michael Keaton's 73rd birthday.
Look at that.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. So as of today, today would actually be Michael Keaton's birthday, I believe. The 5th of September?
Yeah, it's today.
Yeah, and then the technical release date for this is September 6th. So happy birthday, Michael Keaton. He actually came to my school and gave a speech.
Yeah, the Batman speech.
The Batman speech. Kent State University, go Flashes.
He's also a big Steelers fan.
He is. Yes, sir. Yes. Hey, we love Michael Keaton here on Film Optics Podcast. We absolutely love him. But yeah, 75 out of 100 from Devin and 75 out of 100 from me, which makes our official podcast score 75 out of 100.
Nice and easy.
Nice and easy, dude. The juice is loose.
It's a tough one to pull off. I don't know.
It's so tough, man.
It's like you have to have something in your throat, like some gravel or something loose in there.
He's got that big, yeah, and like Keaton has that just like that groggy voice, like. It's crazy. It's crazy stuff. But with all that said, that does conclude today's episode. If you enjoy what you heard, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at FilmOptics. That is Optics with an X. And don't forget to share an episode of our podcast with a movie lover, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Spread the love for the Film Optics Podcast with a movie lover in need. And now let's take a sneak peek at what's coming up next on the show. Devin, we have a lot on the docket. We have Speak No Evil. It's coming out soon. We also have Wild Robot dropping later this month. And what else comes out? I am blanking right now. September has come and it's already the 5th day in September, which is crazy to think about. But those are the two movies that I know we're going to be covering for sure. But on the new release side, we had a lot of stuff. Speaking of spooky season, you can listen to our Alien Romulus review as well as our Blink Twice review, which is Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut film. And you can listen to our Umbrella Academy Season 4 review that includes spoilers. And you can listen to our latest Blu-ray review roundup where I talk about Ted Lasso, Furiosa, and Mad Max Saga, and The Watchers. So those are just a few episodes that you can listen to on the podcast platforms around the internet, wherever you listen to your podcast. And with all that said, thank you all for listening. If you enjoy the show, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and stay connected with us by following us on Twitter for the latest updates. That was Devin, and I'm Christian, signing off. And remember, life is like a movie, so go out there and make it a blockbuster.
Peace.